I'm Taso Du Val. I'm the CEO of Toptal. Toptal is the world's largest fully remote workforce. We're about a workforce of 7,000 plus. And so we have some credibility speaking on remote work, freelance talent, and all that. So with that said, I'll get right to it. So we're going to talk about borderless hiring and what borderless hiring means in the context of remote work and a flexible workforce. So these are really four pressing topics that are top of mind for business leaders today. We have remote work, which of course is top of mind for this conference here, this summit. We have evolving technologies, chat GPT and things of that nature. We have the talent shortage issue, which we're going to talk about in just a bit. And we also have the recessionary impacts that are looming at large. And you'll see quickly how borderless hiring and remote work really plays into all these different factors here. So what is borderless hiring? Well, borderless hiring is being able to hire the right individual, regardless of where they are, generally remotely. And so when you're hiring without any constraints in regards to geography, that really is borderless hiring. And the question is, why is now the time? Well, now is the time partially because of the pandemic impacts, partially because of the infrastructural evolution that has taken place in terms of allowing remote work to occur, and partially because companies like Novo Nordisk, case in point today, have embraced remote work and have adopted it so that their policies and their regulatory elements fold right into allowing a company and an individual to partake in borderless hiring. So here's a statistic that was in 2018 out of the US Census. In Silicon Valley, over 2/3, in fact, the number is 70% exactly, of the software engineers in Silicon Valley come from outside of Silicon Valley. In fact, outside of the United States. And so borderless hiring has already been occurring in Silicon Valley, the primary place where we all know innovation to occur. However, it's been bringing the talent all the way from their hometown to Silicon Valley to make that borderless hiring experience happen. No longer is that needed. And we will talk about some of those issues or some of those reasons in the future, but let's talk about Toptal and the growth that we've had, because I do think that's important to give you some market insight into our business, which really gives you insight into where the future of remote work is going. So as I've mentioned, we have an active workforce, meaning our internal workforce of about 1,000 plus and over 5,000 plus active freelancers working on engagements globally to make us the largest fully remote workforce in the world. Our growth just since 2019 has been over 175%, and our talent applications have grown over 200+%. Now, these are great numbers. You all are investors in Toptal, so why am I giving you these numbers? Well, I'm giving you these numbers to show you the trends that are happening in regards to remote work. In fact, just to drive home the point, if Toptal was to have the growth that we had last year, just for 5 more years, we would be a Fortune 500 company. Now, what is the underlying point of that? The underlying point of that is that the demand for remote work is massive globally. And so what you see here at Novo Nordisk is really amazing, because you guys are really capturing the trend and pioneering what I believe all of the Fortune 500s are going to be doing globally, all of the Global 2000s are going to be doing, because it's so apparent from the numbers that just we see. And it's really amazing to see that Novo Nordisk is embracing it in such a prominent way. So with that, we'll go into some more specific benefits in regards to borderless hiring, both for the businesses and for the individuals, so we can drive home the point. So first, access to top talent. This is an obvious point. There are React developers that lots of different Fortune 500s and startup need. They're not in Silicon Valley. They're not in Copenhagen, but they are existing out in the world. And so being able to access the right talent when you need it is very important. If you look at Reiner Strock, a partner at BCG. He gave this talk in 2016. This is probably the most fascinating statistic I'll give you today. The labor shortage in 2020 by country, and this is directly from his presentation, you can see on the left-hand side. You can see how that trend fares once you get to 2030. Every country in the world will have a dramatic talent shortage by 2030. And the reason for this is because of the birth rates that have happened globally and the skyrocketing demand for high-skilled labor. This is a completely amazing time to be in remote work and in the talent industry because the needs are growing every single day, and these statistics corroborate that. Furthermore, we want to give insight into what it's like to work with world-class talent. Alin, you did an amazing job at showing some of your talent that you've worked with, 3 talents that did great work for Novo Nordisk. We have one that we would like to talk about, Elena Grigoris, who was living in Moldova for about 15 years of her professional life and was a CEO at a startup, head of sales, partner in a consulting firm. However, she was confined to living in Moldova because of the fact that she didn't have access to remote work or remote opportunities. Now she lives in Madrid. She makes, I believe, 3x what she made previously, and she will never not work remotely. And so she's an individual who you can never engage with unless you engage with this individual remotely. And so borderless hiring is the only way to engage with someone like Elena. Diverse backgrounds. We all know that diversity is a key theme, especially within the Scandinavian countries. And it's not just about diverse backgrounds in terms of where we come from, but also diversity of thought and our experience. And so diverse teams notably allow for more competitive edge. And so with that, you're able to spark new ideas, compete in new markets, find unconventional solutions. And to that end, these are real people who work all over the world in data science, engineering, product management, project management, in Africa, Asia, countries all over the world that are helping our clients to be able to progress whatever they're doing. And this is not just within Toptal. You can see this all over the world. This is a trend that is happening, clearly one that Novo Nordisk is embracing and other Global 2000s are embracing, that is happening as a result of embracing borderless hiring. And then cost efficiency. So this one is a newer statistic, but this is something that I think we can all identify with, and you're probably seeing now, if you're reading the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal, in New York City and San Francisco, you can see the empty office buildings, you can see the statistics almost on a monthly basis that are written about. If everyone who wanted to work remotely in the US did, businesses could save between $500 billion and $1 trillion per year in real estate overhead and lost productivity, and the majority of that is attributed to real estate. And so the gains that you get in terms of operational efficiency, the reduction in OpEx, the finance folks love, and the increase in net income or EBITDA is real. And not only is it real, but you can use that either to give it back to the talent to increase their rates, to have them more engaged with you, or you can apply that capital to other areas of your business. These are very real implications that have so many gains for so many different types of companies. And then last but not least, improve engagement and productivity. So Raj Chowdhury, he's a professor, part of the faculty at Harvard Business School. He engaged with us in terms of doing a thought leadership piece. This is a quote from him, and he focuses on remote work. Work from anywhere can liberate us from the shackles of geography. Talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And this last piece you hear all over the world. You hear it in the freelance industry. Talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. It's a very common phrase. And that is really the truth. Talent really is everywhere. Borderless hiring enables hiring talent anywhere. And the opportunities are right here. So you can match them just by embracing borderless hiring and hiring people without the constraints of geography. And one more, promotes meritocracy. So a true corporate meritocracy can only exist when the best person for the job is hired for every role. We all know that intuitively, but of course, that's difficult to do if you're constrained by geography, because sometimes, to the React developer example, it's difficult to find people who, in the case, develop in React because there's just not enough React developers in the world. I use React because React is an actual example of something that is really pressing in terms of the demand, where there's a very low supply of React developers and a very high demand. And so that's why I keep going back to that specific point. But the real point is if you could hire the best React developer, whether it's in Macedonia, whether it's in London, whether it's in Tennessee, you will hire the best person for the job because they deserve it, not because they were just in Copenhagen by happenstance and you hired someone who was subpar just because you couldn't find anybody else. And so with borderless hiring and remote work, it isn't about where you are or who you are. It's about your talent. And that is true both for businesses and for individuals. And so borderless hiring and the future of remote work, future of remote workforces are the future of work. And we see this case in point of today, of the presentation and the presentations to come, case in point of our business, and what you've heard from different folks, I'm sure, all over the world who are thought leaders in this space. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions, talk about our experience as the world's largest fully remote company, as a company that provides freelance talent and a company that helps promote remote work for companies all over the world. Clearly, I don't think Novo Nordisk needs that, but happy to answer any questions.
Taso, one of the things that Toptal is known for is being a wonderful place for talent to grow. You do an awful lot of stuff. I've written about the stuff, and it's pretty amazing. You're not running a digital warehouse. You're running a community. Can you talk for a little bit about how you see the next 5 or 10 years and what's required of platforms to continue to be successful?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Platforms started off, Upwork, Elance, Freelancer.com, many freelance platforms, with the idea that they would simply be transactional. And those transactional opportunities would basically be the Amazons of the world today. They started off with the premise that the model for a marketplace within goods is the same as a marketplace within services. And so they said, okay, well, eBay and Amazon were successful with creating billion, now trillion-dollar companies. We'll do the same and we'll be very successful. Well, that actually didn't turn out to be the case. In fact, Upwork's market cap today is $1.4 billion. Fiverr's is 1.34. Freelancer is 80 million US dollars. It's almost nothing. If you compare that with Amazon, which is over $1 trillion market cap, well, those folks are supposed to be the leaders in the services space. Well, who's the leader in the good space? The good space is $1 trillion versus the services that are all the public companies in aggregate are only 2 billion, basically. The reason for that is because the model was fundamentally flawed from the jump. You can't just have a transactional model. It's not going to work. You need to embrace the community as a community, and you need to develop people as people. You can't simply offer a platform of work and expect it to be the next $1 trillion company. It's simply not going to work. You need to develop folks. You need to build relationships with them. You need to have, in effect, career paths for them that will allow them to flourish and thrive on your platform, on your service, and enable them to be long-term promoters of your platform and have a long-term career, in effect, on your platform, not just be a person who's interacting transactionally. And so you had the sort of Web 1.0, Web 2.0 jump where all these different freelance platforms came to reality. They just did it wrong. And it's really hard for those to pivot. What you're going to see is a different shift or different turn of the crank where companies who embrace this idea of treating people like people and playing to where they want to go in their careers and working with the companies so that they can be accommodated for the big deals that they want to do, for the big innovations they want to create, that's really the future. And so a community and fostering that community, both in terms of the businesses and the talent, is very important to develop a very successful platform.
Hi, Taso. Thank you for your presentation. My name is Ricardo. My question is in terms of social sustainability. Global companies like Novo, we need to report every year on the well-being, not only for employees, but also for external workforce. So when you work with a consultancy company, the consultancy company have legal entities in every country where they have compliance with the country regulations, every country where the consultants are located. So my question is, when we hire somebody to Toptal, do you have any compliance in place or any process to make sure that of the well-being of these workers, of they have good conditions? And if you do, how do you do it?
Sure. So when you say compliance for the well-being of workers, do you mean specifically in regards to ensuring they are being compliant with their own local labor laws, or do you mean it in a broader sense? And if you mean it in a broader sense, could you try to define that?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of well-being, working conditions, they have pretty much human, how do you say it? Yes, pretty much good working conditions in terms of human sources.
Sure. So we exclusively deal with very high-skilled labor. And even in the high-skilled labor segment, we have a pass rate in terms of our screening process of between 1% and 2%. So it's sort of the high labor of high labor. And with that just comes quite high-paying jobs, generally speaking. So in terms of working conditions, just via what even the lowest person is paid on our entire platform, they're living a fantastic life. And I don't think that's something that we would personally report out on, because I think 100% of our workforce would be living at the bare minimum middle class. I'd be surprised if even they were middle class, probably middle upper class in many different cases, because we pay generally higher than what, let's say, an Upwork or freelancer pays. And we're generally a more competitive rate than those platforms. So in terms of working conditions, everyone's working remotely from their own home. And so their working condition is their home. We're not inspecting their home, but I would hope they have nice enough homes to continue to work remotely and live a good life.
Thanks.
Hi, Tua from Novo Nordisk Engineering. Tal, can you tell us a bit more about the, or if you have any learnings in the interspace between the current employees and the top talent you bring in? I could imagine that some of the current employees in whatever companies could feel threatened by the new top talent flying in remotely or beaming in via Zoom. So what have your learnings been in that space? Are you coaching the top talents? Are you working with the employers how do you integrate top talent into a current workforce?
Sure. So many of our top talent have become C-levels at startups, Fortune 500s, you name it. And so they are generally recognized as peers when they start off. And sometimes I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say really anything else. I really think they see them as peers. I don't think the folks we work with feel threatened by them or something like this, where they feel like they're an outside consultant trying to take their job. We always, and what I've seen more broadly speaking in the space is a situation where it's staff augmentation. I think that was the exact word you even used in your slide. And we augment to serve the company. And so whatever the company's needs are, we generally serve them. Now, that's usually the case for most providers, even in the most transactional case, even if it's not Upwork or a freelancer or something like this, explicitly working to serve the customer is going to work to serve themselves by going on those platforms to hire those people directly. So I haven't seen a situation or even been privy to a situation where we've heard there's been some sort of combativeness in terms of bringing on folks. But I will say that they are generally seen as peers. And the real difference is usually in the regulatory or some more administrative element, whereas they might be on a project and join your project for a short period of time, then switch over to someone else's project, or even just leave the company because you're not needing them for the project anymore. So those are the only real differences that I've seen. But, we just had a case where we did a case study with a guy who used to work at Carlyle Group, which is at the time the largest private equity firm in America, who became the CEO of a company recently. We're doing a case study on that, a video case study. And so, the guy who was the CEO there actually hired him and said, hey, I want you to now be our CEO. So it worked out. But we have lots of situations like that. And I've heard of lots of situations like that, even with the Upworks and the more transactional services.
Hello, Taso. Karina speaking here from IT University of Copenhagen. So I have a question regarding AI. How do you integrate AI on your platform?
Well, I will say that we have many real AI efforts underway, unlike a lot of the companies that are in our space that don't have real AI. I actually think there's only really ChatGPT and a few others that are actual real AI rather than just regressions on machine learning. But with that said, we do regressions and we do rather rudimentary AI internally to score the matches, but that's not anything that's too difficult. Right now, we have a bunch of innovations that we're working on that relate to how we're going to leverage ChatGPT, how we're going to actually ingest data via APIs that leverage ChatGPT, et cetera. And we're really excited about what the future of that has in store. I do think, just like probably everyone in this room, ChatGPT is going to revolutionize many different aspects of services companies, freelance platforms, and companies in general. I was just with the CIO of Evolance, which is also a healthcare company, and I already know in the healthcare space, this is a huge deal. And so it's really cool to see what healthcare companies and freelance companies are doing globally. And I think we'll have some really cool innovations in the future, but we don't have any that we've made public just yet.
Just one more question, because I recall McKinsey, she explained very carefully about your hiring process. Really exciting last time. So I was curious to know how you use recommendation systems, matching, projects and candidates.
Yeah, so here's the interesting thing, and we'll have more data and anecdotal evidence next year on this. Toptal has always been a very manual process, but a very fast process. So it's a bit contradictory in a sense because most people associate manual with slow. In fact, we've done it in a way that is extremely fast, almost too fast because companies can't hire as quickly as we can match talent with them. However, the benefit of a ChatGPT-like system is the data. And we have all of the data, over 12 plus years of all of the matches and all of the different situations that have ever occurred over the course of Toptal's lifespan. So we're able to leverage that data to look at not just the success cases, but also the fail cases, and that in a variety of industries. And so we'll likely be looking at that and applying some heuristics to it to be able to see what optimizations we can receive by doing so.
I'm going to be sneaky and ask one last question.
Okay.
So I've worked with this for quite a while now. I'd say, obviously not compared to you, but I do see that there's quite an issue with change management, getting people that haven't worked with the external workforce before and actually convincing them that that's something that would be valuable to them. And you've been in this field for quite some time now, so I'm assuming that's something you've met along the way. How do you actually break down that barrier? Because that's definitely a challenge that I see, is convincing people that this is actually the way to go and the way forward.
Hire younger CEOs. That's the real answer. More thought-provoking CEOs. It's always top-down. I know of a company in America that's a Fortune 100. I was just at dinner last week with the CIO, and he said, I can't hire anyone remotely because my boss, who is 65 years old, wants me and everyone in the office 5 days a week, no exception. I can't work with anyone remotely, no matter if they can do their job remotely. We all must be in the office. That is just ridiculous. That is just completely stupid. You're, to the financial point I was making earlier, harming yourself financially. You're harming the lives of everyone. You're just showing that you're not being thoughtful about the process and about the work environment, the work dynamic more specifically. And that is a just bad situation. So I think what's going to happen over time is that you'll have more progressive CEOs. Clearly, who's over running Novo Nordisk is really at the top of their game, because I am just so impressed really with what you guys have. But you'll have companies like a Novo that will win in their space and be able to capture the gains economically, the efficiencies economically, and also just from a talent perspective. And those will be the winners. Like I mentioned previously, you have Satya at Microsoft, and I was invited to Microsoft to, with the folks, the main GM at LinkedIn and all the other folks, because they were forward-thinking leaders in this space. And so Satya is a forward-looking leader. And you have companies that are going to win. And I think this is a strong indicator if they're going to be winners. So I suppose we can close on that end.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Taso.